Welcome back everybody, and welcome to a new year. We're glad to have you guys back here at Codebase, and we're sure you missed us. We're sure you wanted to continue your course, and now we are back to continue it. We know we went for a long break, but just like you guys, we also wanted to enjoy our holiday, and we wanted you guys to enjoy your holiday as well. We were actually planning on giving a CSS practical, but we decided to no. Let's allow all our listeners and viewers enjoy their holiday. It's the festive season. Let's not ruin it for them with assignments. We're not exactly a school per se. So once again, I want to welcome everybody back to Codebase channel, and again, welcome to a wonderful new year to you all. We are still Codebase, your number one learning platform your number one free learning platform for all your web development skills and other tech related skills. And we are continuing on from where we left off in our CSS course. So we are going to continue from today. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, and also if you have any project that you want us to undertake, whether it is a web development project, UI UX project, data analysis, and other tech related projects, please feel free to contact us, as we can take on this project. Okay, so let's not waste any time. Let's dive right into the course. In today's topic of CSS, we're going to be talking about the CSS display grid and the CSS display flex. Now, the reason why I have to specify it like this, display grid and display flex, is because there is display grid property and there is actually a grid property separate. Okay, so I want to clarify that now. There's a display grid property and there is actually a grid property separate in CSS. That's why I have to specify it like this. What we are going to touch is the display grid property. And if you remember very well, I said that in CSS, the display property affects how our elements appear. That is what it does. It affects how our elements appear. Alright, so that means we want to make our elements appear as a grid and appear as what? A flex. And we're going to do that now. So without further ado, let's dive right into the course. Alright guys, so if you remember from the last class, where we stopped out was right here, where we talked about our CSS attribute selectors, positions, CSS overflows and all that. And I showed you guys a clean example here in the browser where we did our position fixed, position absolute, position relative, position static. We also did a scroll overflow and all those other related topics. But like I said, in today's class, what we are going to be touching is the CSS display flex and display grid. So display grid and display flex. So let's dive right into it. So for this thing, I don't want to use this previous page I'm using already. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come and create a new HTML file. You guys should be able to do this by now. Remember, if you want to create a new HTML file, just click on this icon here. Alright, make sure you're not selecting any folder inside here. Click on this icon and simply say, let's give it a name. Let's say page.html. At this point, the document's name doesn't matter at this point. I'm also going to come to my CSS folder here and give it page.css. Then let's insert our HTML boilerplate and link up these two files respectively. This is something I believe you guys can do by now. We've done this in HTML. I've showed you how to do it again in CSS. And if you've been practicing, you should be able to do this easily. So let's get this done. I'm just going to quickly run this quick. Sorry for that. Link href is equals to page.css. Yes, type is equals to, I say type, sorry, relationship style sheet. Now I'm going to call this one other CSS practice. Now, it is not necessary that you create a new file. Okay, you can simply comment out what you did before and add this new code we are doing. The only reason why I'm creating a new file is because I want it to be on the blank, because I wanted my work to appear on a blank web page, so you guys can see how the thing fully works without any confusion, any mix-up, or any issues. But then again, you don't need to create a new file like I did. Okay, so let's fall back into that and let's go to this our page.css and put our universal selector and put the usual margin 0, and I'll give it to the last one. I'll say font family and I'll use my favorite font, Tahoma. Okay, I don't know why, but it's my favorite font. Don't judge me, we all have our own. So let's dive right into it now. What we want to touch is the CSS grid. Now the CSS grid, what we want to touch, like I said, is the CSS grid. That is the display grid. The CSS display grid property. That's what we want to touch. There's also a topic called CSS Grid, but we're not doing that one now. Okay, now the CSS Grid property, what the thing allows us is that it allows our elements, it allows HTML elements to be displayed in a grid format. Alright, now if you ask what is a grid format is almost similar to a table format in the sense that it works with rows and columns. Now the CSS grid is not actually a table, but it works like a table, or is similar to a table, because it makes uses of what? Rows and columns. Okay, that's just the simplest way to understand it there. And the reason why we use the CSS grid is that it allows us to position our elements, right, properly on our web page. It allows us to position our elements in a well-arranged manner. It makes our elements organized on our web page. That's the beautiful thing about grid there. Okay, so which allows one to position elements freely. Should I use freely or freely on a web page? So not there, on a web page. So let's dive right into it. So now take note, the CSS grid works with sections. Okay, it works with all elements as well, but it's best used with sections. So what we need to do is we need to create a general section, and inside that section I'm going to create subsections. So what I'm going to do, a shortcut I'm going to do here is this. I'm going to say dot grid, that's the name of the class I'm going to give it, greater than div times 6, enter. I'll comment what I just did right now for you guys. Dot grid greater than div times 6. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake here. Pardon me. I made a clear mistake here. Sorry, just pardon me. Pardon me. I missed a single character. That's what the mistake I made. So I'm supposed to say dot grid greater than div dot times 6. Exactly. So you can have the class here. So I'm going to name my class 1, and this one I'm going to call it 1. We're going to move on 2. This one I'm going to call it 2. We're going to name this one 3, and this one we are going to call it, yeah, you already know, 3. We're going to name this one 4. Come here, 4, 5, 5, and 6. 6. The 6 should be small letter here. Pardon me. So the shortcut I used to achieve this is very easy. All I did was, let me comment it here again. Oh, sorry, I pressed the wrong key on my keyboard. Pardon me. Dot grid greater than div dot, don't forget the dot, times 6. That's all I did. So if you type this code and you press enter, it should give you this simple template here. And remember, I talked about this. This is the Emmet abbreviations in VS Code, and I even showed you where you can go to go and get the article on it. So if you've read up on it, you should know about this by now. So now what we have here is that we have a single section, and inside this single section there are 6 subsections that exist inside there. If you remember correctly, the div tag is used to create sections within the HTML document, and that is what this div has done. We created a general section here, and inside the general section we created 6 subsections, and I will go to apply grid to all of it, and so you guys can see how it works. Now if you come to your browser, this is how it's just going to appear. Sorry, I have not gone live, pardon me. Let's go live here. Open the live server. This is how the page is just going to appear. You won't see it much here, but as you know, once we start it up with CSS, it gets better. So let's carry on. So let's go to our CSS page, and I'm going to target that class of grid. I'm going to say grid. Now take note, it is not necessary that you give your class name grid. I am simply giving it the class name of grid because this is an example, but it is not necessary that you must give your class name grid. I am not saying you cannot give your class name grid. You can name the class grid if you want to apply grid to it. It is allowed, but I am saying it is not necessary. Okay, I am just doing this as an example. So let's move on. So the first thing we have to do here is we have to add our display grid. Okay, so by putting this display grid, that means we are now telling our browser that okay, we want this app element here to appear in a grid format. So what is there for us to do is to position this our element in a grid format, and it will take to take root. So to do that, I'm going to come here and say the first thing you have to do is declare the amount of rows your grid is going to have. Remember, I said that grid works with rows and columns. And if you remember very well from the HTML tutorial, when you did HTML tables, you will notice that before you can create a column in HTML, you must first create the row. That means the TR tag comes before the TD tag, and you can see that in the HTML videos that we did previously. So it works almost the same way with CSS Grid. You must first create the grid rows before you create the grid columns. Okay, you create the grid rows first, then you split the rows into columns. That's how it works. There's no complex mathematical equation behind that. It's simple. Create the row, break it into columns. So to create the rows, the first thing we have to do is the grid templates rows. Then all you have to now do is declare the height of the row. Declare the height of each row. That's all you have to do here. Nothing much, nothing else. Just declare the height. Now, depending on the number of variables you put, that is the number of rows you will get. That means if you put one variable, you only get one row. If you put two variables, you get two rows. 3 variables, 3 rows, and so on and so forth. That's how the grid template row works, this particular property here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 variables in this scenario. So I'll select the first row be 400 pixels in height, and the second row should be 600 pixels in 600 pixels in height. Not much. Now if you come back here, what do you notice? If you notice, this first 2 has created more gap. You can see that the 1 and 2 has added gap to it. Although we can't really see the definite change to our work here. So let me, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add background color to each of the sections. So let's do that quickly. Okay, so let's pause here. We're going to come down here and say dot 1, dot 3, and dot 5. Background, we're going to call the background red. Then dot 2, dot 4, and dot 6. We're going to call it background, blue. We're not going to do too much. This is just a simple example. Okay, great. And as you can see, we have our grid template rows. Now, remember what I said earlier. The CSS display grid works with sections. Now, because we've declared our grid template rows, we've declared the height of each row. What happened is that the first 2 sections, that means the first 2 subsections inside the general section, these first 2 sections here automatically went and took this given measurement here automatically. That's why I say that the CSS grid works with sections. It best works with sections. Okay, these first 2 automatically went, these first 2 columns here automatically went and took these 2 row heights here. Now that you can leave your work like that if you want to leave it like that, or you can proceed to work on it. It depends on what you want to achieve by the end of the day. But this is just to show you how grid and sections work together. Okay, so moving on, what you have to do after you declare the table rows is that you have to declare the grid columns. Okay, so let's declare the grid columns. Today I will say grid template columns. Okay, and just like the grid template rows, all you have to do is declare the variables. Now, depending on the amount of variables you put in, that is the amount of columns you're going to get. That means if you put in 5 variables, you get 5 columns. If you put in 2 variables, you get 2 columns. So on, so forth. Nothing complex there. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say, okay, let this first variable be 400 pixels, second variable be 300 pixels, and the last variable be 600 pixels. And if you come back to the browser, this is what you get. The first variable is bigger than the second variable, while the third variable is the biggest out of the 2. It is clear for you to see here. Now, because we've properly allocated all the spacings to our grid, all the sections automatically went and took their respective positions. Okay, remember when we first put only these grid template rows, the first and second subsection took those 2 positions and claim it as their own. All right, but if we now divided the rows into columns, that means we've provided enough space for all our subsections. They each went and took their respective positions inside the grid. So that is how the grid works. It works with the section. So you have to take note of this thing I just said now. The grid works with section, and depending on your measurement, the sections will automatically allocate themselves to their respective positions. Okay, but it works in what? It works in order. the first column before the next column. That is why I number these columns here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on purpose, so that I can see that the first section, which is number 1, is here, number 2 here, number 3 here. So it works in order according to how they appear, that is serially. Okay, so let's carry on. So now we have our grid template rules and grid template columns. But let us say I want it so that I want it in a way that each column will be equal in width. I don't want the column to be like this. I want each column to be equal in width. Now you can easily just naturally put the same number all through here. That is 400 pixels, 400 pixels, 400 pixels, and that will give you the answer you want. But I want these columns to all be equal in width. At the same time, I want it to touch this edge. That is where a conundrum comes in. Okay, now also take note of this. When I decided to split the grid template columns, I did not say only one 400 pixels here. No, I didn't give it only one variable. Remember, if you give it only one variable, then your rows, your grid will only have one column per row. You can see it here. You have to specify the number of columns you want to give it by giving it a certain amount of variables. So moving on. Now I was talking about splitting up the column width, and I mentioned, let us say you want to make sure that this column width touches the edge of the web page without any issues, and you don't want to bother yourself with the measurement. All you have to do is come back here and do this. Rather than using measurement of 400 pixels, just say auto. That's all. Now this auto I put here doesn't work in the grid template rules. You must put the height you want in the grid template rules. However, in the grid template columns, you can simply say auto, or 4 autos, or 5 autos, or 10 autos. It doesn't matter. What you are simply doing is that you are saying automatically assign the first column its own space, automatically assign the second column its own space, automatically assign the third column its own space, and that's what we're going to. And now we're going to get this here, and from this you can clearly see that each column is equal in width to the other. There's no much difference whatsoever. Okay, let's carry on with the work. Always, and please remember, if you do have questions, please don't forget to comment your question down below the video that you're watching, so that we can get back to you on that particular question you asked. And also, we have various group chats and community platforms that you can use to reach out to us and interact with other developers who are currently learning. Check out the description of this video for the link to those platforms, so that you can join them and join the group and join the community and learn with them. All right. At the same time, you can also ask us questions in our respective communities, and we'll definitely get back to you. We are always active there to attend to you guys. All right. So let's carry on with the video. So as I was saying, now that we split up our columns, let us say I want to put a gap in between each columns. I don't want the columns to be too joined up. I want there to be space between each columns, or space in between each row. What do I do? Pretty easy. All you have to do is come here and say row gap, then give it a measurement. Let's say 20 pixels, and column gap, give it a measurement as well, 40 pixels. And if you come back to your browser, voila, that is what you get. You can see that grid is not in any way complex. It is not complex at all. The process is simple. First, display it as a grid, then allocate the height of each row, followed by the width of each column, then next the gap. That is all. That is grid in a nutshell, in the simplest form possible. We are not actually done, but this is the simplest way to this is the CSS display grid in its simplest form. It is simple, it is direct, and it is effective. Now, depending on how you arrange your grid, you can use it to properly allocate your elements on your web page and spread elements where they deserve to be. Okay, let's carry on so you guys will see more of this. So now that we're done with this part, let us say the next thing I want to do is let's see, what do I want to do next? Yes, let us say I want to stretch out each column so that it will surpass its width or its height. Okay, if you guys remember correctly, when we did the HTML tables, you did the co-span attribute in HTML tables, which allows you to expand the width of a particular column inside a table to the width of other column width sizes. That is, it stretches out a particular column width across other column width sizes as well. So you can do that same thing here in CSS Grid. And as always, it is not difficult, it is not hard. So I promise you that none of this here is difficult or hard. So let's do it together now. So what we're going to do is, when you want to do this kind of thing now, you don't do it inside the general section. What you have to do is you have to go and target that particular section you want to stretch out. Okay, now I have 6 sections here, namely 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And let us say I want this 4th column here, this 4th column to be as wide as to be I want its width to extend from the 1st to the 2nd column. I don't want it to be only here, I want it to be here and here. Okay, so what I have to do is I have to come and target the column number 4. So I'll come down here and say dot 4. I want the width now, not the height, the width. I'll say dot 4. Then I'll give you the property of grid column start and grid column end. So the grid column start is simple. Where should this particular column start from? And grid column end is where should this particular column end at? We already know that this. Remember, when you put your CSS grid, the sections automatically take up their positions, but you can also redefine the position by using the grid column start and grid column end properties to change where your sections appear. That means this number 4, I can make it come to number 3 if I want, and this number 2, I can make it come to number 5 if I want. That is all. But what we want to do for now is just to simply stretch out this column. We want this particular column here to take up the space of 2 columns together. That's what we are trying to achieve right now. So let's get it done. If you have me say that was a joke, but don't say it. Okay, so moving on. So in the grid column start, all you have to do is say start at 1. That means start at the first column inside the row. Okay, start at the first column on the row. Then this grid column end is end before this number, not end at or end in this number. End before this number. That is the way the grid column end works. And the reason why I'm saying that, now watch. If I say end before column 2, nothing will happen in the page. Look at it. Nothing happened, right? Nothing happened. Nothing changed here. And there's a good reason why. That is because I simply said this one should start at this place and end here. Start at number 1 and end before number 2. If you start at number 1 and you end before number 2, that means you are still at 1. You didn't enter 2. You understand what I mean by this thing now? That's why I said your grid column end should be end before this number, not end at or end in the number. So whatever number you put here, the grid column end property is going to end before it reaches that number. That means it will count the respective column. Okay, if you say end before column 5, it will say okay, this is column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4. And if it says that okay, the next one is column 5, that means I will stop at column 4. I won't enter column 5. I won't touch column 5. I won't cross over to column 5. That's what this thing simply means here. Now all I have to just do is change this thing from 2 to 3. And if you come back here, there's a clear difference. You can see it now. This 4th column has extended to the width of 2 other columns. Now it did not enter the 3rd column. Take note, it didn't enter this 3rd column that is here. Why? Because of the rule I already told you. It ends before the given figure. So I said start this particular column in number 1, end the column at 3. What did I tell you to do? That means end before it enters 3, and 3 is right here. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. There's no story there. Now this doesn't just apply to your column width, to the grid column start and grid column end. You can also do the grid row start and grid row end. For that, I'm going to comment this one out to prevent any hiccup from happening. Then we're going to come down here and say grid row start at row 1 and grid row end at row 3. And you come back here, what do you see? The 4th column started at row number 1. You can see the number 1 column has moved to the 2nd position now. Okay, so we've made the height of this particular column stretch up to the 4th column. So you can see that with the grid, but we can do it we can arrange our web page in such a way that we can make it so that these columns here can be short, while this one will be long on each side, and we just have to position our elements on each side respectively. It's actually not like, again, it's not hard. If you just take your time, settle down and look at it in practice, you can easily get it. Coding is all about logical thinking, and every one of us that is on this platform right now, I believe we are all smart because we know what we want, and you're trying to achieve what you want by taking this step to learn this program. So I'm sure you guys can conquer this. It's actually not hard at all. So let's carry on. So I've showed you guys the grid column start, and I've showed you the grid row start, and the reason why I did not put them together was to prevent any mix-up from happening. Okay, that's why I separated it clearly for you guys, so you see how the grid column start works and how the grid column end works. It's actually not hard, as you can see. Okay, so let us carry on. Now let's try something else. Let's remove this thing from this place, and let's say .1 instead, and I'll say .3, and let's try something and see this word grid. Now let's not type this, sorry, I forgot. It's okay to be lazy in coding. Copy and paste is allowed, remember that. Where is 2? Grid rule starts. Oh. So 1 and 3 started here. Supposed to be 1, 2, 3. Let me see. Let's target 4 and see what happens here. Hold on. As you can see, what I'm doing is I'm playing around with the grid to see how the thing is going to appear or how it's going to work. And you can clearly see how it's working, right? So I think I know where I made my mishap now. Did I write 3 there? Jesus. Think I might be here, and there's nothing I can say when I'm by myself. I am by myself. Yes. And now we have this. So you can clearly see from what I did here was I targeted the first section. I changed this class of 4 here to the class of 1. I targeted the first section and I gave it grid row start 1 and grid row end 3. And if you come back to the browser, I made it so that this first column, number 1, will stretch out to the height of 2 rows, and this will now make it so that the other columns will shift. They will be adjust themselves automatically. Then I came and targeted this particular column that was here, which is column 3, and I now said, okay, let us stretch this one out. Let us make it so that the grid column starts at 2 and it ends at 3. And remember, 2 is this second column that is here, not this third one that is here. And let's remove this and let's see if this will work. Yeah, you have to put the other one there so that it will work out clean. Okay, so with this we are done with the CSS grid. Now the CSS grid, you can play around with this, you can do whatever you want with it. Okay, I can even do something like this. Let me comment everything here out. Oh, sorry, I got wasted because I didn't want to do it. Let's say .2 is back to normal, right? .2 grid row start at row 1, grid row end, grid column start, and grid column end. And let's come back here and we have this. So to purposely position my elements like this, what do you see? You can see what I did. I first stretch out the row height so that this particular second column here will stretch out up here and down here. That is to stretch out down to the second column. That is this middle column will stretch out down to the second row. However, I came and made a slight change. I came here and said grid column starts 2 and grid column end 3. That means I wanted this second column to stay in its position and not move at all. That's why to give you this particular tool that is here. I don't know what will happen if I should remove this and I should come back to the browser. I don't know how to react. Let's see. Boom, you can see that the 2 went to the first column side instead of staying at this place here. That is why to give you this thing that is here. So make sure that this thing positions itself well in the center. So remember, just because I separated these 2 here doesn't mean they cannot work together. They work together if you position them properly. Okay, but the way I did this thing in the first place, I knew that it wasn't going to work well together. It will scatter the work and it's going to look hazard. That is why I have to separate. I have to comment them out separately, just to show you how everything works. So I showed you the separate, I have showed you the combined, which is the grid rule start and the grid rule L combined. CSS grid is not hard at all. It's something that if you take your time, practice, and really figure out. And from this, we are going to see how we can use it to position our elements when we enter the CSS practical. And that is all on CSS grid. Now, the next thing we're going to touch is the CSS display flex property. Now, this one is not like the grid. What the CSS display flex does is that it allows our elements to appear as a flexible box. And what does that mean? It means it allows the elements of the box, that is the content of the box, to automatically adapt to its environment, in a sense. Let's go and touch it now. Let's go and touch the CSS flex right now. Remember, if you have any questions, please ask them down in the comment section, or check out the description of this video. You will see the link to our community platforms there. Join the community, raise your questions. We will definitely get back to you, and you can learn from others that have already been in the community as well. You can ask them, they will tell you how good we are. Let's carry on. So I want to touch the CSS flex now. So we're going to comment this here. I'm going to say let's put a little decoration, and I'm going to say CSS display flex. Now, allows HTML elements to be displayed as a flexible container. Thus, its child element means automatically adapt to its size. Right? Did I say that well? Allows HTML elements to be displayed as a flexible container. Thus, its child element, that is the element that exists inside the parent element, the original one, like this one that is here, automatically adapts to its size. Now, the CSS grid, the sections there automatically adapt to their positions, but in the flex they adapt to the size of the element itself. Now, remember, all these things that are here are not the actual definitions. Okay, I am just simply trying to break it down as simple as possible. These are not the actual definitions. All right, let's carry on. So let's start the CSS flex. We're going to leave the grid alone. I'm going to come here and put a serious HR BR. Let it be a significant gap between the grid and so that means everything concerning the flex is going to start from down here. So let's touch the flex quickly and we're done with today's topic. As always, we're going to create a div dot flex dot left dot flex greater than div dot times 3. All right, cool. So we're going to come to this first one now and call it I already used the 1 2 3 there. I'm going to call it left. So I'm going to say 3. We're going to call the second one center. Remember, these names I'm giving them are random. The class names are simply random. 4 and right should be 5. Pardon me. So we have this little div container here. This div container called flex, and it has 3 subsections inside it, and I'm going to show you how flex works using these 3 subsections. Again, Just like the grid, it is not hard at all. Just pay attention and watch, and I'm sure you understand it by the time we're done. Okay, let's carry on. So look at our work here. Now, as always, we're going to come down here. We're going to say, oh wow, I am so sorry, please pardon me, I skipped one last thing that's actually pretty important. It's actually important. Okay, there's actually a shorter way to write all this code you see here. There's actually a shorter way to write all this code. This is not wrong, there's just a quicker way to write it. That is all. That's what I skipped. I completely eluded me. I am sorry. It's not a mistake. It was an error of omission, but it was not a mistake because this is still correct. All right, let's carry on. So I'm going to comment this out, so I'll show you the short form of what writing a grid work. So to shorten this, that is these first two lines, if you want to shorten them, is actually the easiest. All you have to do is, you don't need to say grid template rows or grid template columns. All you have to say is grid. That's all. Then you will now declare the height of each row first, the same 400 pixels and 600 pixels, followed by a slash. Okay, when you put this slash, this grid automatically knows that, okay, this is the height of the first and second row. Okay, it knows that already. It says this is the height of the first and second row. Then if you come here, I'll just put auto. So when you use this grid property like this, and you type something like this, for example, what it's going to do is to say, okay, these figures, this is variables that are here, the first two variables or the first three variables or the first five variables, depending on how many variables you put, they will go to the first and second row, which the first and second section will take. Slash. Now when you put this slash, you're simply saying, okay, this is where the rows end, and now let me type the measurements of the respective grid columns, and I simply said automatically split it up because I don't want to do the math myself. I am a lazy person. And if you come back to your browser, you can see that your stuff worked just fine. Okay, your stuff worked perfectly fine. It's working the same way it worked in the original. Okay, and last but not least, as you see this gap that is here, this row and column gap, we don't need to also write it like this. We can write it in a single line as well by simply saying gap. And this gap, just say 20 pixels for the row and column and 20 pixels for the row gap, 40 pixels for the column gap. And if you come back to your browser, that is what you get. You can see that our work has returned back to the original position. So like as I was saying, this is not wrong. Okay, this is just a quicker way of writing this, but you have to understand this to use this. Remember, when you use this gap, when you use this grid here, you have to first declare the height of each row, just like I did here. I first declare the height of each rows in my grid before I split it into columns down here in this second line, which is the same exact thing I did here. I called out the grid property, and I first declared the height of each row slash the width of each column. That is all. Then gap, instead of saying row and column gap, just say gap. The first variable goes to the row gap, and the second variable goes to the column gap. And you can see that in this place right here. It's clear as day. The gap between these two rows is not as wide as the gap between these two columns. Okay, so that is CSS Grid in a nutshell. Let's carry on with the CSS Flex I was about to show you. Again, pardon my mistake for forgetting the topic I was actually meant to teach you guys. Alright, so moving on. Okay, you know what, we've gone a little far in this video. So this is where we start in the CSS Flex. We've typed this. In the next video, I'm going to explain CSS Flex as well as CSS Forms as well. Please pardon me again. We took a straight in this CSS Grid, and I want you guys to assimilate this one first before you guys assimilate CSS Flex. Remember, this is still Codebase channel, your number one channel for learning web development and other tech-related skills, as well as taking on tech-related projects. Please do remember we take on tech-related projects. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, and always remember, inside the description of each of our videos is the link to our community platforms where you can join up and interact with other like-minded users as well. Okay, you can come there, ask us questions, we will get back to you, interact with other people that is there, build your team, work with like-minded people, and grow together. Again, This is Codebase. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.